Hey, what's up you guys? So this is part 2 for Canary's breakdown video, or guide, and this one's going to cover more or less like her parries, and her strings, and just like her general moveset in general, in repeating the same word twice, and more or less what to use where, to have the most success with her stuff. So to cover the parries, because it ties into the resets, and her BMPs and whatnot. Let me just get this correct. Soaring knee. The thing with a parry is, on its own, with the high parry, as you can see, it does its own base damage. When you do, when you meter burn it, you have the option to meter burn it. You can actually connect a jumping kick and then continue your combo that way. The thing that you have to keep in mind. Oh no, wait, this isn't it. This is for the low parry, in which I can't actually replicate it unless I do this. This is one thing that you have to keep in mind when it comes to her low parry. When you do her high parry, you can do your combo. You can do any combo in the world that you want. It works the same exact way so long as you have meter and trait. There's nothing to change. When it comes to her low parry, because of the properties of it, you cannot meter burn your soaring knee afterwards. So you want to be careful with this. Like if you're trying to get more damage, like meter burn your knee first, and then you do the full thing, and then you do the canary drop, etc., etc. If you want to do all that, keep in mind that it's not going to work. So either go straight into your canary drop, go straight into the scream. But yeah, that's about it. Just because it's just not going to work. Like doing the soaring knee, it doesn't matter where you do the soaring knee in the combo that you're doing. It's not going to meter burn. So that's something to keep in mind. But going back into the parries, and general game plan of parries, they're both 6 frames. The low parry obviously parries lows, and then the high parry kind of just parries everything else, like highs, mids, overheads. Anything that a parry would parry, that's what it would parry. When it comes to the meter burn, you have to commit to the meter burn, like you have to actually hold it, or else it won't come out. You have a very, very small window to meter burn the parry. So that's one thing to keep in mind, and that's also why you want to pay attention to your positioning, so that you don't accidentally throw them out. Like as you can see, like let's say you have the corner, right? You do the parry, oh look at that, they're outside of the corner now. But you had bar, you should have just meter burned it, That way you could have gotten something for it. So it's like what you can do is just do that. I did the wrong thing. You can jump in, do the canary drop, and then get your combo in that way. And then push them right back into the corner. But that's more or less just covering the parries in a nutshell. You can parry certain things on reaction depending on the travel distance. Like against Scarecrow, you can parry some of his strings if he does it from like half screen away because it's so slow, relatively speaking. Some back 3s and forward 3s you can also parry on reaction. But there aren't that many gaps in the game that you can actually parry at all, because most gaps in the game are either 4 or 5 frames, and our parry is 6 frames. It's slower, so it doesn't fall within that window to be able to successfully parry that stuff. But yeah, that's really covering that. It's very situational depending on the matchup. But now when it comes to her strings, like she has a good standing one. I believe it is 6 frames. Yeah, it's a 6 frame jab, and her down one is 7 frames. The thing with Canary is that, unlike everybody else in the roster, she lacks neutral. And neutral refers to like this range over here. Like other characters, they have good tools. Like Wonder Woman, she has her back 2 that can reach. She has her shield bash. Harley, she could contest with like her back 2. Poison Ivy, she has back 2, down 2. She has her vine drill in general. Catwoman with her back 2. Like characters have like a lot of options, and they're quick. They cover a good amount of space. The problem with Canary, her only actual option here is her back 2, in which it's a sweep type of move, but it doesn't leave her in a low profile animation, and that's one of the biggest problems with her neutral. As you can see, she's low on the ground, right? So it seems like she's in a sweep animation. The thing is, she can actually still get hit out by lows. Not by lows, by highs. You know how when you normally crouch, highs go over you? She can actually still get hit out by highs when she's doing stuff like this. For some reason. So that's one of the things that like really hinders her neutral game. And then she has her back one too. But as you can see, it doesn't travel that far. And it takes a while to even reach them. And of course, she doesn't get anything out of this. She gets a knockdown and that's it. And they're not the fastest moves. Her back one, as you can see, is 16 frames. Her back two is 22 frames. It's very, very slow. So these are things that you kind of want to watch out for. You have to use them situationally. And then like her next best thing would be like her forward one. As you can see, it's a high. It's also 16 frames. It's a little on the slow side. But you know, you can connect it into her forward 1-3, which is an overhead. And it does cover a good amount of range, as you can see. So this is a good tool to close the distance, but because of the speed, and because of it not having like any additional properties like armor or stuff like that, or canceling stuff, you can get hit out. But these are your options that you can use. And then you also have, lastly, like your 3-3, which is plus and block. And it's 2 mids. So you know, it's like, it's good. And if you manage to like hit them with a straight shot, then it's a hard knockdown. So you're still on top of them. So those are the things that you really want to use when it comes to her neutral. But that's really all that she has. Aside from that, you're going to be either like flipping, like within range, you're going to be jumping at them, trying to land a Canary drop. A lot of moves in the game aren't that unsafe, so you can't really go for punishes a huge chunk of the time unless it's like a really optimal one. Like to just do something point blank, something like really, really unsafe and punishable, and then you get a punish that way. But it's like against a lot of pressure. Like someone like Superman, for example, if he does like forward 2-3 into breath, her poke is not going to reach. Like look at how little range her poke has. You know, like he can easily hit her out. He can easily make dismiss. He doesn't even have to walk backwards. He just stays still off of the breath, and it's not even going to reach him. So this is why you want to conserve your meter and your trait, so that way you can either like push block people when they're there, like when they're pressuring you, and then you can gain some space. Or if you do manage to interrupt their movements, you know, you can cancel into your trait afterwards and then cash out for it. So then kind of going into that stuff. 112 has been made safe. It has a gap between the last 2 hits, but it is safe on block. And on hit, as you can see, you can hit confirm into your combos. And then 113 is also safe. I don't think that it has a gap, but it ends up like in a good knockdown. And then you have your 112, in which it's a throw, technically, yeah, but they can just crouch this and it misses. So that's why you want to be careful when you do this, because you know it misses and you can get punished for it. She has a standing 2, which is 11 frames. This is one of those tools, like one of those momos that it has like a lot of really cool properties, because as you can see, you can do it on its own, right? This is how it looks on its own. But then if you hold up, you can actually delay this move, and you can cancel into specials. You can cancel into trait, you can cancel into a backflip, you can cancel into a Canary drop, or you can delay her follow-ups, in which she has 2 different follow-ups for it. Actually 3. You can delay the 2-up-3, in which this is a string on its own, but you can delay the follow-up. You have 2-1, in which this is part of her 50-50 up close. As you can see, it's a low. And then she has her 2-3, which is an overhead. So this is one of the most common things that people use, like Canary players use, to open people up. Because as you can see, 2-1 comes out very fast, the low comes out very quickly. For 2-3, the overhead takes a while, so it's like you can trick people, delaying the up from the 2, and then making the low come out roughly the same exact time that the overhead would have been coming out. So when you get people conditioned enough to like respect this and to block this, this is what can let you like flip into them while they're walking back and then just like grab them out, or while they're walking backwards, go into a Canary drop, or just like wait and then cancel into trait and stuff like that. I'm trying to see the other stuff. That's actually it for her normals. And then she has her 3-3 like I was explaining before. It's a hard knockdown. And it's a cool hard knockdown because it's still a hard knockdown. You can still like do specials out of this. And before they hit the ground, you can still hit them out. Like with that. So now when it comes to her specials. Her flip is technically her invincible wake up, but you can get stuffed by grabs, by sweeps. If the opponent spaces it out right, you can hit them, like you can hit the canary that's flipping around during the recovery. So it is one of those things that you want to be careful with. It has invincibility like on its own startup. Like you don't have to wake up with it to have invincibility. And it has like special properties against projectiles. Like you can flip through certain projectiles. You can either flip forward or you can flip back depending on what it is. So that's one thing that you also want to learn and you want to keep in mind depending on the matchup. Like against certain characters you can keep on flipping forward, but you can't flip back. For others you can only flip back and you can't flip forward, and then for others you can do whichever one that you want. So that from her flip you have numerous options. You can hold your X or 3 and you can do these multi-hits. This is difficult to do realistically, but it can be done. You can use this move to break armor on reaction. As you can see, it does 2 quick hits. So you have that. And it's borderline safe on block, depending on the range that you do it at. You have the down 3 version, which would be the 2 lows, which is safe. You have your up 3, which is a high, and it does a decent chunk of damage, as you can see how much damage it does. And it's a good like combo extender, like when you're in a corner. It's a good combo ender for like a little burst of damage at the end. And it's also safe, depending on the ranges that you do it at. Let me just double check. Yeah, see, it's -6. And then lastly, you have the meter burn version, which is the overhead. So the overhead is actually plus on block. It's only +1, but there's like no block stun on it. So if you're trying to go for pressure afterwards, if you're trying to take advantage of the frames that it has, or the frame, you have to basically mash into the next move like immediately, or else the opponent's able to get away. Sorry for my hoarse voice, I've been talking so much. And that's more or less like her stuff. She has her soaring knee, in which this move you can meter burn it on hit, but you can't meter burn it on block. It has a good amount of recovery. As you can see, I'm holding down. You can see how long it takes for her to start crouching. But it is like the go-to special when it comes to hit confirming out of your strings and going into combos. And then you have her Canary drop, which you can do in the air, or you can do grounded, in which you have a normal version, which travels like this range, this distance, and then you have a closer one, which you will pull back. And then lastly, her super. Oh, it's gonna play the whole thing. So as you can see, her super launches her up in the air on its own, but you can also do the super from the air too, and it still comes out. So that's also one of the reasons why you want to hoard meter, like I was covering in the meter management and like her general play. If the opponent is really low on health and they're scared to do something and they decide to get ballsy and jump in at you, Canary doesn't have the best anti-airs, but once she has her super, all of a sudden it becomes like this multi-armored, you know, like 40%, you know, like super hit that snags people out of the air. So that's why you want to conserve it. But you very rarely ever have her super just because she needs meters so much for like everything that she does. But then it's covering that. I'm trying to think of any other specials that I missed before I go into her trait. No, I think that. So now we have Canary's trait. And I just left this for last just because it's kind of simple to cover. So when you start at a match, you actually start out with nothing and you have to wait for it to build up. It does not build in between clashes, it does not build in between rounds. So that's one thing that you want to keep in mind too. And it doesn't build between like stage transitions and all that stuff. It's the only trait that doesn't build, that doesn't recharge. So, you know, you have none, and then you have this, which is level 1. Level 1, just a short burst. I don't think that it has any frame advantage. Oh, it's +3. But it doesn't have like any combo potential following up for it. So it's like you almost like literally never use the level 1 because it has like no use. You have level 2. As you can see, also by the way, like before we get into that, as you can see how fast it charges up to reach level 1, and then it starts slowing down a little bit to get to level 2, and then once it reaches level 2, it starts slowing down even more. That's the general process, like with her trait. So now with level 2, it leaves them standing, like if they're already standing. And you know, you have plus, you can dash up, don't combo off of this. On block, you have plus frames, it covers a good amount of range, so it's like you can make people actually respect this. You can use this as a neutral tool, so have them respect that. And then lastly, you have your 3, which is basically a full screen scream. Go full screen right there. Some stages this applies to, or maybe it's like a bug with it. But that's one thing you want to keep in mind and try to be careful with. Like if it looks like it's too far, it probably is. So I would be careful with like wasting your trait right there. So then you hit them with that, and then it restands them. Like even if you hit them grounded or not, it always keeps them in a restand state. And you can use this, you know, on hit, on block, full screen. The only problem with this is that her level 3 is actually unsafe. It's punishable. It's -9. So now to go into like the trait stuff in general. Once you hit level 1, you can actually start charging up your trait. You can hold the trait button and basically build up to the next level faster, as you can see. And the cool thing about this is, or actually, before I get into that, there is a timer on this. You can't just hold it forever. As you can see, I'm holding it, but it comes out on its own. So you can wait for it, and you can actually cancel out by holding down. And it takes you down 1 trait level, depending on whatever it is that you were just using. So like, let's say I'm level 3, and I cancel out, now I'm level 2, I cancel out, now I'm level 1, cancel out, now I'm back to nothing. As you can see. So it's a good way to fake out against people. But you want to be careful, because if you get hit out, then you actually lose that level. And it's also a good way to just like charge it up in general. Like let's say, like you can see how it's at level 2, how it's building up slowly. You could do certain combos where you can hold it a little bit, like in the middle of that cancel, to build it up that little extra bit so that you can get that next level, like the level 3, and then finish your combo that way. As opposed to just like committing to the scream and then you only get out like level 2 for some reason. You know, because it wasn't filled up all the way. There isn't too much usage for like doing pressure, like applying pressure with her trait cancel. I don't think that there's actually any plus frames off of it. I think that you're either neutral or you're negative. So that's why I wouldn't recommend doing it unless you have somebody conditioned that, like let's say you always use level 2 like trait cancels, right? Like you always do like block pressure, it's level 2, you know, you do that all the time, right? And then this one time you decide to just cancel out and then, you know, grab them for it or initiate more pressure following up for it. That's really the only time they actually ever really would have utility for it. But aside from that, you really just want to conserve your trait until you actually land a hit so that you can, you know, cash out for it. But yeah, kind of going back into like her normals, her down 2 is not the best. As you can see, it has like literally no range. It's really bad. But you know, like that's her anti-air option. You can somewhat use her back 3 because it's actually it's pretty quick for a back 3. It's 26 frames, and it has a huge aerial hitbox, which I'll show you. As you can see, and you can get a full-blown combo for it. You can armor it just to be safe. And yeah, just like that. Her forward 3 is a little bit on the slow side, but you know, it covers a good amount of range and it leaps her up, so she can evade certain lows, depending on what they are. And then lastly, she has like her sweep. in which I'm not too sure if it's safe or not. Yeah, it's only -2. 10 frame sweep, decent range for a sweep. It's only -2, has like non-existent recovery as you can see. And this thing actually does put her in like a low profile animation. So it's a good thing to use, like if you're full screen trying to evade certain projectiles, you can use this to just go under stuff. And then lastly would be her jumps. So as you can see, like her jump 3, it's one of those jumps that has her entire body active. So you can either hit them at the front, like with her front leg, you can hit her basically with her cooch, and that works. Or you can hit them with like the back leg, and it still connects. She has her jump 2, which also works the same exact way. As you can see, she's hitting them with like the other side of her knee, like her other leg, and not the leg that's actually kicking them. Or you can hit them with like the foot itself. And then she has her jump 1, which in my opinion is really not that good for a jump in. Not even good for an air-to-air. Like, I'm not entirely sure what you would use this for, other than like throwing it in there within a combo somewhere. And then to kind of just like close this out a bit, just because I feel like I covered most of everything that you really needed to learn when it came to the other video, the first part. One of the best utilities for like her jump 3 and her jump 2, or mostly her jump 2, is that as you can see, it hits overhead and it hits them in front. You can cancel this into the Canary drop and create a double overhead mix, in which depending on how they're moving, as you can see, both of these hits hit in front. But then if you space it out, or depending on if they're moving backwards, you can make it so that it hits in front and then it hits right behind them right afterwards. So you have this additional mix game where then you can just jump in and go straight into like a low. So it's an overhead low, overhead overhead, or you can just jump in and then just start pressure afterwards, as you can see. So this is one of the things that you want to use to like actually get in and start opening people up with. At least that's what I use, that's what I find the most success in. You know, like wait for them to whip something and then just jump in. Even if they start blocking the jump and kick, even though it's not a punish, it still creates this like four-way guess for them. It's like, you know, jump and kick, is it going to go into a low? Is it going to go into an overhead in front? Is it going to go into an overhead that hits behind? Is she going to go for pressure? Is it going to, you know, end in a grab? You know, like she has all these options. But yeah, that's roughly it. Like the 112 advances her forward a little bit. But yeah, she's one of those characters where, because she lacks a lot of range, you're really not going to get too many punishes. But if you do 2-1 or 1-1-2, those are going to be your primary combo starters, and that's mainly what you want to use for punishing. But yeah, I think honestly that's about it. I feel like I covered everything that I really actually needed to cover in the first part. And it's just kind of just like going a little into detail, kind of just giving like an overview as to what she has. But yeah, I hope you guys find this of use. I'm sorry if I didn't do Canary justice. You know, it's like I use her and I enjoy using her. I know a lot about her. I know how to counter her. But yeah, I mean, I hope you guys find this helpful. And if not, you know, feel free to leave comments below. Feel free to share this and whatnot. Any feedback is welcome. But yeah, hope you guys have good use of this, and take care.